Good evening. Welcome everyone to the Tuesday, December 15, 2020 Urbandale City Council meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to take roll call, please.
Blake.
Here.
Carberry Montgomery.
Here.
Sorry, Carberry Montgomery.
Here.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Obra.
Here.
Hoagie.
Here.
And Russell.
Here.
All right, thank you. If you could please stand as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Urbandale is a national leader in character counts, endeavoring at all times to promote and model the principles of trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. In conducting tonight's meeting, we expect that all participants will act in a respectful manner consistent with these principles. Item 2 is to approve the agenda. I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Pogie. Second by Obrecht.
Okay, discussion, please vote.
This better not be an omen for tonight, Nicole. Please move me that. Yes.
So updated, thank you.
That passes, thank you. Item 3, presentations. We do have a presentation tonight from Elizabeth Prizzuti, from the Chief Executive Officer of DART. And Elizabeth, I believe you're on. I will recognize you to make a presentation. Welcome.
All right, great. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to you tonight and provide you an update on DART. So also, we greatly appreciate the leadership that Councilmember Carberry Montgomery provides to the DART Commission. She is a great advocate for Urbandale. So thank you for allowing us to utilize her talents on the DART Commission. With me tonight, I have also Russ Trimble, who is the chair of the DART Commission, as well as Luis Montoya, who is our Chief Planning Officer. And so I'd like to turn it over to Russ to be able to provide just a few opening comments.
Thank you.
All right, welcome, Russ.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I would echo the comments that Elizabeth made about Bridget. It's an honor to have her on the DART Commission. She does an excellent job for you all, and love serving with her on that DART Commission. So thank you to Bridget. So it's an honor to be here. I just want to talk about some of the things that we've been working on and doing at DART. We have embarked on a transit optimization study, as I know you are all well aware, as one of those things that we implemented actually even before we got into the study is the Flex Connect that we have in Urbandale, our partnership with Uber and taxi service, which I believe has been a success to this point, and we love seeing that work the way that it's been working. And so we've embarked on this transit optimization study to try to look at other modes of transportation, ways that we could become innovative and creative in trying to provide those transportation services to our customers in the most efficient and effective manner that we possibly can. At DART, I've been extremely impressed at Elizabeth and her staff, how the current business model that they have, they're constantly working to be better and smarter in what they do and to be as efficient as they possibly can. And this transit optimization study and implementing things like the Flex Connect and other pilot projects that we're going to have upcoming really help us to try to be as efficient as we possibly can. Something else that we've been doing at DART, we've been trying to right size our buses. We get a lot of complaints from people that have the perception that there's nobody on our buses. That is a perception that people have. It's a misperception. We actually do provide a significant number of rides each year, and we've got the data to show that. But we are looking at right-sizing our fleet. We've purchased 5 30-foot buses. It's not a huge savings for us, but it is a savings nonetheless. It's a savings in the cost of the buses themselves, and also a little bit of a savings in the gas. And when you've got over 100 vehicles in the fleet, you know, that savings adds up quickly. So we're going to continue to do that, to right-size the buses, right-size the fleet as much as we can to save money for our taxpayers and to provide that efficient, effective service. Something else that we've been doing at DART, we've implemented a position review team. So through attrition, if we have people leave the organization, Elizabeth and her team gets together and has a conversation as to whether or not we need to backfill that position. And if we don't, then we'll hold that position open. And then last but not least, and Elizabeth will walk you through this, we've been looking at trying to best align cost and benefit so that our member communities can get the best bang for the buck that they possibly can and feel that bang for the buck. And in doing that, we've gone through an extensive review of our funding formula. And the funding formula has been a long process, but I believe we arrived at the most fair funding formula that we possibly could to best align that cost and benefit. It's based on population, and it's based on the services that each community receives. And so with that, we're going to continue to do everything we can to be as responsible as possible for the taxpayers, and you know, reducing those costs and becoming as efficient as possible. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Elizabeth to go through some of the details with you.
Great, thank you, Russ. So tonight, just want to provide you an overview of the Urbandale service. I know there's several council members on that have not had an extensive review of the service in Urbandale. So go over that real quick, and then talk about the transit optimization study, as well as the property tax formula, and then an update on a project that the commission has had under consideration with our bus operations and maintenance facility, and then some of the other projects that we have in the pipeline. So I'd like to turn it over to Luis Montoya, our Chief Planning Officer, to go through the overview of the Urbandale service and our transit optimization study.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good evening, commissioners. I am Luis Montoya, Chief Planning Officer. Quick overview, as Elizabeth mentioned, really the number one reason that people use DART is to get to work. We also know that they use it extensively to better themselves through education and to take care of themselves for medical appointments and other essential services. And so that's really what we focus on when we think about how we serve our customers and residents in our region. Urbandale has a number of different DART services that range from local bus services that have a bus stop that the bus comes on a set time, express routes that are really set up to bring people who live in Urbandale into downtown Des Moines, but also some people do use it to get from Des Moines and come outward. A newer service that I'll go into a little bit more detail called Flex Connect. And then, of course, paratransit service, which is a door-to-door service that serves people with limited mobility. This is just a map showing those different routes, focusing in on Urbandale. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the areas that we serve, but I think the main point to make is that, as I said, there's a range of different kind of service types that we cater to the needs, both in the time of day that they're offered, but also in how that service is offered. Is it flexible, or is it on a fixed route? And that's how we balance serving the needs of the customers with the cost effectiveness and responsible use of our funding. I mentioned the Flex Connect program. This was launched in 2019. Something that we're really proud of. It's a pilot project that we partner with Uber and with local taxi company Yellow Cab to improve access to the DART network. So what this program did is we replaced a bus route that was underperforming. There was not a lot of ridership kind of circling in this area. It might be hard to see, but Hickman's on the south, 86th Street on the west, and Merlehaim Mall on the east up to 8035 in the north. And this area had a bus route that was really collecting people in the neighborhood and bringing them to transfer to other DART bus routes. And what we figured out was that it would actually be more efficient use of resources if we actually just allowed people to take Uber or taxi to the bus stop, rather than have a bus that served on a fixed route on a fixed timetable. And what that did is it allowed us to actually open up the time of day that the service was available and make the zone bigger than just whoever could walk to the bus stop. And so now we were able to serve additional needs for residents at a lower cost. And so this was implemented in 2019. We had really good uptake in utilization. The same number of people who were using the bus before. So it's not that a ton of people were using it, but it's that it was the right match of the resource to the need. So the transit optimization study is our long-term planning effort where we want to take a comprehensive look at our whole network and make sure that we are optimizing service. So the service that we provide, make sure it's as efficient and effective as it can be. But also that we look beyond just that core bus service that is the core of our business, but also look at evolving transportation needs and service delivery models. And so what I mean by that is as people change, where they work, how they want to get to work, the times of day that they need to get to work, we want to make sure that we have our services are also evolving to be flexible. And increasingly, we're seeing opportunities where, like the example that I showed that we launched in 2019, it could be that there's opportunities for us to go in a little bit different direction and provide just that bus service and partner with even private sector to provide a more efficient service and actually even improve mobility for customers. And so here's just some examples of where, like in the previous example, we had a route that it turned out it was more effective for us to buy individual Ubers than to have a bus on a fixed schedule. And so we did that. Also ability to bring customers, more people to the DART bus network. It doesn't mean that we're just, necessarily giving them an Uber to go wherever they need to go. We're really trying to get people to DART. And so ideally we can increase that core bus ridership and get people where they need to go. There's lots of different examples. Really look I think the core is that there's different modes, and the key is that we're matching the right modes with the needs that are in the community and figuring out what DART's role is in facilitating that. This is just a little bit of a timeline of that study. We started the study previously, so we're kind of in the middle of it. We've done our existing conditions analysis, and now we're about to start our public participation in the spring. We're hoping that as we kind of emerge from the pandemic a little bit, people will be able to look towards the future and think about how our region's transportation system can continue to evolve to meet everyone's needs, with the aim at having a plan by the fall of 2021. So that's our kind of big main planning effort. But at the same time, we continue to do some of the other smaller things, more basic things, such as selecting the right vehicle. I think Russ mentioned this, that we started purchasing a little bit smaller buses. That's the picture there on the left. It really has the same utility. It has all the ramps and everything that you need for our larger 40-foot buses, but it's 10 feet shorter. And so it's a little bit more fuel efficient. It's a little bit cheaper to buy up front. And so those are the types of things that we're doing to right size the resources that we provide to the needs in the community. I mentioned the Flex Connect pilot, and then another example of our of buying the right buses and looking towards the future is our electric bus pilot, which we just launched into service, I believe, last week, and they've been a huge success. To have 7 vehicles now, all electric. So as we look to the future, and as I mentioned, looking at more opportunities to partner with the private sector and provide the most efficient, effective service as we can, we've identified another opportunity to expand on that same Flex Connect model that I talked about, what we already launched in 2019. We've identified another area of Urbandale based on the success and the kind of characteristics of this area that would be a good fit for this Flex Connect model. And so what we're proposing, and this is still in the planning stages, and we're actually doing public outreach this week, is that just like the other Flex Connect, we would take a bus route that just is underperforming, and that could actually be more efficient use of funds to use Uber and Yellow Cab to provide the trips. And so as you can see in the map on the right, the existing DART bus route, it's Route 74. It goes from Valley West Mall, and it goes and it circulates up around the business parks, kind of up towards Meredith. And most people use it to get out to jobs in those areas. And so the service would still provide that function, just the way it's delivered would be different. And so people would be able to get on Uber or Yellow Cab still at Valley West Mall and be able to take it now to anywhere in that brown zone. And so now it's not just if you're close enough to walk to the bus stop on the red line, it's that if you're anywhere in that zone. And that allows us to hopefully increase access to jobs up in that area. And we'll make the service available at more times of the day than the current bus route. And we'll increase the number of routes that people can transfer to. So just by changing the model, we're able to open up more flexibility, more options for our customers. That actually comes at a savings to our budget.
All right, thank you, Luis. And if you haven't, are there any questions on the service or the pilot that we can answer before we get into the property tax formula? All right, well, hearing none, we'll jump into the property tax formula initiative. So DART's budget on an annual basis is just, for this year, is just shy of $37 million. The bulk of our revenues, over 62%, come from local property taxes. 20% comes from revenue that DART is able to generate on our own. So that's through passenger fares, our partnerships, other sorts of service contracts, as well as advertising revenue. And then the remaining funding comes from federal grant funding, as well as a small amount of state funding and some other sorts of miscellaneous revenue sources. On the expense side, the bulk of our expenses are putting the buses on the road. So it's salaries, wages, and fringes, fuels and lubricants, repair parts, everything that makes the buses go and put them on the street. And so here is also the property tax rates for each of our member communities for this current fiscal year. They range everywhere from 54 cents per thousand up to 95 cents per thousand. And as Russ alluded to in his opening comments, there had been a lot of discussion on the commission about wanting to make sure that member communities find value in what they're paying for the service that they're receiving, and wanting to make sure that those are aligned as much as possible. And so the commission embarked on an initiative to review the formula and look at potential options and how to change that for the future. The current formula is that everybody was grandfathered in at a rate that related to service at the time that DART was formed in 2006. And then the formula, then how it was assessed is that everybody grew by the same number of pennies. So if the levy had to go up by a certain number of pennies, everybody grew by the same number of pennies. So if Urbandale went up by 1 penny, so did Des Moines, so did Windsor Heights, so did Pleasant Hill. And so the goals of the initiative, again, we're making sure that that whatever formula the commission came up with, that it maintains the regional intent of DART. It again allows for DART member communities to continue to find value in maintaining their membership. and it also provides flexibility for DART to meet the needs, future needs of the community. And so the commission also established operating values as it related to this initiative. We worked with Scott Racker with the Robert D. and Billy Ray Center to help facilitate these sessions. And the work really centered around finding consensus through this process and recognizing that the end solution will likely not be a perfect solution for everyone. And that, again, success is finding a formula that aligns that cost and benefit to member communities and factors in the regionality of how people travel. And so there were many meetings that the commission had on this. 3 of them were dedicated to establishing principles for the formula and making sure that as we thought about a new formula, that these principles were being met. And so those principles are that there's long-term viability for the formula, that there's some predictability, that there's transparency, that we're thinking with a regional mindset about the formula, that there's equity, and that there's some sort of base level of support or contribution to DART as part of that formula, and that we were thinking creatively. And so the commission looked at a variety of different options, there were 5 main ones with a lot of variations off of each one of those. The first being having a flat rate, so everybody paid the same property tax rate. The second, that there was kind of a base buy-in to be a member of DART, and then there was an increment added for service. The third one was that the levy rate was based totally on population. And then the fourth was service tiers. And then the fifth one, which is the recommended formula option, is that it does an allocation to the city of Des Moines, and then all of the other member communities of DART, the allocation is based on population and service tiers. And so the preferred option, which I mentioned, it takes that $22.46 million, which is DART, what DART collects as part of our FY21 budget from property taxes, and allocates 49.2% of that off the top to Des Moines. And Des Moines is the bulk of our service is in the city of Des Moines, but it also provides that connection and linkages to the rest of the member communities. And so that 49.2 represents kind of that shared benefit of the services in Des Moines that is given that can be seen by other member communities. And then the rest of that property tax dollars are then allocated to the other member communities, that 50.8%. And then 50% of that is based on population, and 50% is based on the level of service that community receives. And so in that tier 2 is West Des Moines, and they have an extensive 7-day-a-week service network. The next tier, that tier 3, is a limited 7-day-a-week service, and that's where Altoona and Windsor Heights fall. And then the tier 4 is primarily 5-day-a-week service that's primarily focused on the express network, and that's Ankeny, Clive, Johnson, and yourselves at Urbandale. And then that last tier is a limited trips. They have paratransit or mobility on demand type service, and that's Bondurant, Grimes, Pleasant Hill, and Polk County. And so when we look at how that plays out from a formula standpoint, you'll see the gray bars is the percentage of that $22.46 million that is paid under the current levy and current formula. So you'll see Urbandale currently contributes 10.2% of that overall property tax dollars that's collected. Under this new formula, you would go to 5.7%. And again, you see the city of Des Moines, who has the biggest, this formula will be the biggest change for them. They go from 35.3% to 49.2%. And then West Des Moines also sees an increase from 19.5% to 21.6%. And so how that formula is applied, we determine the total amount DART needs from property taxes for a given budget year. We allocate the dollar amount to Des Moines based on that 49.2%, and then that remaining 50.8%, 50% is based on population, and then the 50% on the service tier. DART is capped under its property tax levy to 95 cents per thousand, and so for the city of Des Moines to contribute at the level that they'll need to under this formula, they will either need to get that cap will eventually have to be lifted, or the city of Des Moines will pay that increment above the 95 cents. And so we did have a lot of discussions with the city of Des Moines, and we had originally looked at phasing that formula in over 5 years. They asked that we phase it in over 8 years, given the financial impact that it is for them and the impact on their property tax levy. And then they also, through this process, the commission really began to understand the limitations of the property tax levy and the challenges of funding DART by property taxes. And so through the discussions with the city of Des Moines, the commission has directed staff to really dedicate all of our legislative energy on looking to find either another funding source to replace property taxes or supplement them, so there isn't such a reliance on property taxes into the future. And so recognizing the constraint of that 95-cent cap that DART has, the city of Des Moines will be supporting the new formula by buying down their levy, at least for the first 3 years, such that we can really focus our efforts on that legislative ask and trying to find either diversification for revenue or another source to replace it altogether. And so as we look at the phase-in, next year as part of our budget, assuming that the commission approves moving forward with this formula, the new formula would be based on 10% of our costs would be allocated based on the new formula, and then 90% on the old formula. And then that grows every year till we get to full implementation of the new formula 8 years from now. And here is estimated what we anticipate levy rates doing. And again, this is an estimate. The valuations are a huge factor in what those levy rates get, how they get calculated. And so we anticipate Urbandale seeing a pretty significant levy rate reduction here over the next several years, going from where you're at today at just over 70 cents to, in that 8-year period, going down to 40 cents. But you know, should something change with your valuations or how you approach valuations, then you know that would have the opportunity to fluctuate slightly. And again, the city of Des Moines does experience the biggest impact of this formula change. They're currently just shy of 95 cents, and in that 8-year horizon, they would go to over $1.50 if the formula was fully implemented and we weren't able to find another revenue source to diversify or replace the property tax levy. So our next steps will be completing we're in the process of completing formal documentation of the formula. We're also working to meet with every member community and share more about this formula as I'm doing this evening, and we'll hope to have that wrapped up in early January. And then the commission will be making a decision on whether to move forward with the new formula or not, such that we would be able to, if they decide yes, that we would implement it with our FY22 budget and certify that in March. The last couple of things I wanted to talk about, DART as over the last couple of years has been working through an analysis to make an assessment of our existing operations and maintenance facility. The facility that we have at 1100 Dart Way, which is just off of Southwest 9th Street on south of downtown behind the BP station, is beyond its useful life. It's also located in the floodplain. It's landlocked, and there's a lot of new use, high density residential development going on around us. The facility has been underwater a couple of times. One in '93, it was completely underwater and needed boats to move around the campus. And then in 2008, all of our tunnel systems that have our mechanical systems was completely flooded. And so there is a need, given the age of the building, to do a lot of replacement of mechanical systems, which are very expensive. And then also, the facility is really undersized for the current day bus. You'll see on the picture to the right, that's our main storage area, and our new electric buses do not fit through those doors. They're a little too narrow and not high enough. And so as we think about the future, that buses aren't getting necessarily smaller, at least they'll at least maintain the size of our current electric bus. From a height and a width standpoint, it'll be really challenging to store our equipment in the existing facility, and we'll need to reconfigure or reconstruct that. And so, given all of the upgrades and replacement of systems that needs to take place, there has been an evaluation to decide whether we maintain operations in that facility, or would it be a more cost-effective for the taxpayer to look at moving to a new facility? And so they are in the process of doing that evaluation. They'll be having more conversation after the first of the year on that. DART has already received over a $17 million grant from the Federal Transit Administration, should we want to move forward with that. But we do believe that it will be more cost-effective for the local taxpayer to potentially go with the new facility option rather than staying in our existing facility. But just wanted to apprise you of that conversation as we move forward. The commission will be having a significant amount of discussion on that after the first of the year. And then just want to thank you for your time this evening. We continue, as Russ and Luis talked about earlier, trying to find efficiencies in our service, making sure that we're leveraging technology and thinking about the future. Again, exploring those funding options that are sustainable and will be able to propel us into the future, and then regularly going through an evaluation of our communities and riders' needs, and want to make sure that we have the service network and the options in place such that we can do the best job possible in serving our region as we work to grow to 1 million people. And so as we move forward with our transit optimization study, and that being our blueprint and vision for the future, we hope that we'll be able to work with you and soliciting input from your businesses and residents, such that we can make sure we have the best plan possible to meet those needs. So thank you, and happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you, Elizabeth and Russ and Luis. Any questions from the council?
Well, I just wanted to jump in. This is Bridget, and say thank you to Elizabeth, Russ, and Luis. It has been an absolute pleasure to serve on the DART Commission the last year. I've learned so much and feel really good about the transportation, the public transportation that we have in Des Moines, and I'm eager to be involved in right-sizing and continuing to move it forward as a metro community. And I also just wanted to ask, is there anything specifically that Urbandale can do to help move your agenda forward?
Well, I think the first is, as we progress through the TOS study, is just helping us wherever possible to get the word out to your residents and using your communication channels such that we get really good input. I know we're in the process of beginning to solicit public input on the pilot for the Route 75 before replacement. And so anything in that regard is always helpful. And then just as you guys are up at the Capitol and talking with the state legislature, is reminding them on the importance of DART to your community, and the importance of thinking about sustainable funding into the future. I don't know, Russ, do you have anything you want to add?
Nope, I think you said it beautifully. I just, appreciate, Bridget, all your feedback and input. You're an active member on the commission, and I think you do a great job of voicing where your council's at and the needs of your residents, and just really appreciate all that you do there.
So active, I don't have to show up as an alternate, so. I don't think so.
There was only that one meeting you had to go to, Bob.
What's that? Okay. All right. Anything
There was
further
only one
from anybody?
meeting.
I do have one question. Councilman Blake, what is you've talked about, but what are you looking as alternative funding solutions to make sustainability? I don't know if you've completely outlined that. What are you thinking on that?
Well, we've started exploring a couple of different options. One would be the potential for a sales tax. It wouldn't necessarily need to be a whole penny, but some percentage of a sales tax. We've looked at hotel, motel, and rental car. That wouldn't be something that you'd necessarily be able to replace property taxes with, but it would allow for diversification. Sales tax, you could, it would be a low enough increment that you could replace property taxes with a sales tax. We've also been looking at vehicle registration fees. I don't have my full list in front of me. And
I think you've hit the main ones. I think those are the main ones we're pursuing.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, and I know we'll keep the conversation going. So thanks everybody for your participation tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Good night. Thank you. All right. We will move on then to Citizens Forum. This is the opportunity to address the council on something that's not a part of tonight's agenda. And I know we don't have anybody registered, but I'll ask the clerk to open up the phone lines to see if anybody wishes to address the council tonight on something not a part of tonight's agenda. Hearing none, then we will move on to item 5, the adoption of the minutes versus item 5.1, the December 1, 2020 minutes. Ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Blake, second by Obrecht.
Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Item 5.2 would be the minutes from the December 8 lunch and learn.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge.
Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Item 6 is the consent agenda. There are 13 items for approval.
A motion by Pogge, second by Blake.
Discussion? Please vote. That passes. Item 7, public hearings. We have one public hearing. Item 7.1 is the Timberline Amendment to the Planned Unit Development Master Plan for the Des Moines Christian School at 13007 Douglas Parkway. The public notice was published in the December 4, 2020 Des Moines Register. I'll ask the clerk if there are any objections to that notice as published.
There were none.
Ask for a motion and a second to open the public hearing.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge.
Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. So to introduce the item is our Community Development Director, Steve Franklin. Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is a PUD amendment for Des Moines Christian. You might recall back in November, there was a site plan that was submitted and approved for some improvements to be made to the baseball field, and part of what was involved with that, here we go. Going to share my screen here. So the existing PUD and the last conditional use permit that was approved by the Board of Adjustment contemplated some future lighting for the football field, which is immediately adjacent to the west here. It did not include future lighting for either the baseball field or the softball field. So the site plan was approved back in November, and we mentioned at that time we did want to do a PUD amendment to make sure there weren't any concerns from the neighbors for the light poles. There are 6 of them. Douglas is down here at the bottom of the screen. There's a light pole right here by the dugout, another one over here. Then there's another one about halfway back, located there along the left field line, another one here on the right field line, and then there's a couple of poles out in the outfield. So there's a total of 6 of them. They would use the same fixture as was used for the football field a few years ago, would have a height of about 80 feet. We did have the public hearing at Planning and Zoning Commission, and there was no one that spoke in P&Z. So unless there is someone on the line that would want to speak to it tonight, it does not appear that there are any concern with the neighbors, especially given the success of the same poles and the same lighting at the football field. So Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval of the amendment to allow the baseball field now to be lit and the softball field in the future to the east of the baseball field, should they decide they want to do improvements to that down the road. Would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council for Steve on this item?
Steve, can you confirm that the softball neighbors were notified if we're giving them permission to do that as well down the road?
It would have been everybody within 200 feet, which would have caught the first couple of houses that are across from the softball field, yes.
So 200 feet of the whole property, not just...
Correct. That is correct. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council for Steve before I open it up to public hearing? Okay, then we are in public hearing on this item. Is there anyone online tonight that would like to address the council on this item?
This is James Rodemeyer with Bishop Engineering, 3501 104th Street. We're the design engineer for the baseball field and also doing the light poles. Nothing real to add. The light poles will be similar to the stadium poles, just right now proceeding with baseball, but wanted to get the PUD amendment to allow softball potentially in the future. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, thank you, James. Is there anyone else like to address the council on this item? Okay, hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
A motion by Blake, second by Russell.
Discussion, please vote.
Uh-oh. We do have 5 in favor on the WebEx.
Okay, that item passes.
Yes, I think it's, we're having some technical difficulties with our in-room displays, but I believe you can see everything on the WebEx, correct? Yes, okay.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 8.
We would just need the motion on the item.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I got carried away there. Thank you, Nicole. We do need a motion on the item. Motion in a second, please.
Motion by Blake. Second by Russell.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 8. First is item 8.1, preliminary assessment for the Waterford Road paving project from 142nd Street to 156th Street. And to introduce this is our city engineer, Dave McKay. Dave?
Thank you. If Nicole could pass me permission.
Yes, it should be coming your way here.
And I'm not getting anything at this point.
Will it allow you to share now, Dave?
I am not getting anything new.
Okay, I tried to refresh it, see if it works now to allow you to share.
And I have it, thank you.
Excellent.
And tell me when you see it. Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
It was probably driver error, but we can get going finally. Okay, this is the Waterford Road paving project, 142nd Street to 156. And before tonight, we have the setting the grade ordinance and also the start of the preliminary assessment process. A little bit about the project. The length of the project is about 4,900 linear feet. It starts at the with the 156th Street project. The entire intersection was constructed, so we start just on the east side of that intersection, connect up to what we have, and it extends just short of 142nd Street, where again on the east end we have temporary asphalt that we're putting in to connect up to our future project. So the it's going to be 4-lane construction, 65-foot wide, be similar to the segments that's just to the west between 156th and 170th. That'll consist of 2 25-foot paving sections and then 15-foot median. The pavement thickness will be 8¼ inch reinforced paving. That's pretty much consistent with what we've used in all the other arterials out in that area. And this project will have a 10-foot asphalt separated bike lane with a 5-foot adjoining concrete sidewalk right next to it on the north side. And so the reason I highlighted this is just drawing my attention. This project should have been built in 2020 in this construction year, but in 2019, this was going to be our first project with on-street bike lanes. And so we were busy designing the project with bike lanes on each side and then a 2-foot buffer for those bike lanes, but they were on street. At the same time, the Complete Streets Committee was going through and doing a master plan, and that completed in November of 2018. And the problem was that the Complete Streets Master Plan was coming back and saying that Urbandale residents really aren't that comfortable with on-street bike lanes, and they would prefer something that, a separated bike lane, so off-street 10-foot trail with bikes running head-to-head. And so this project ended up being delayed so we could redesign to get the separated bike lanes included with the project. So just wanted to note that this project was delayed a year just so we could make sure we're consistent with the complete streets master plan. And then on the south side of the street, we just have a 5-foot concrete sidewalk. So a little bit about the quantities for the project. We have about 39,000 square yards of paving with the project, about 6,000 linear feet of storm sewer, 8,660 square yards of paving for separate bike lanes and sidewalks together. And then other items included with the project are grading, conduit, survey, traffic control, clearing, grubbing, and restoration. The reason I've conduit highlighted here is Mid-American Energy a couple of years ago came out with a new offer to the cities that if they wanted to do undergrounding, then they would do that at no cost to the city if the city would be willing to put in the conduit and also work with them as far as obtaining easements for switchgear and such. So we started to work with them on this project, and we also did 54th Avenue this way, a project that was completed this year, east of 100th, joint project with Johnston. Okay, so on this project, about midway through, they flip-flopped again and said that this option was no longer available to cities. We kind of cried and moaned a little bit because we had put some time into it. They said, okay, go ahead and complete this project, but past this project, we're not going to do it anymore. So this project has conduits installed by the city. We've been working with them on the easements, so it appears that we will have the power lines undergrounded for this 1 mile section for the cost of basically the conduit. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, but also to tell you this is the last one they're going to do that way, and we'll be on to a different method in the future. This is the cross section. So left is to the north, right is to the south. And so you can see in this area over here, we have the 1 foot gap to property line, 5-foot sidewalk. Adjacent to that is our separated bike lane. Then we have 10.5 feet of green space. And then jumping to the south side, we have 21.5 foot of green space, 5-foot sidewalk, 1 foot gap to the property line. So that's what we're looking at for a cross section. As far as the assessment goes, this is the assessment plat. This is starting at 156th Street. Like I said, the intersection was installed with their last project. So our project will start right on the east edge there. And so this is the west half of the assessment plat. East half is here, and you can see that we run up to just short of 142nd Street here. This is our asphalt transition back into that 2-lane intersection. A little bit about the assessment. The amount that we will have for preliminary assessment is about 1.7 million. The city's cost in the project will be about 4.6 million, and overall about 6.4. Turns out that we're about in that same range of about 25 or 26, 27% is what we assess on these projects of overall project cost. So right in the ballpark of where we usually end up. So of the property, this is for paving now, just the paving portion of it. We're assessing 146 properties with this project. 105 of those have been prepaid at final plat. 35 of those have been bonded at final plat. 4 properties have petition waivers, which basically is a document that said that they can't that basically they can't object to our assessment. And then we had 2 properties that are new assessments. One of those is towards the, I can go back here. One of them is this property right here. It's a large acreage north side on the east end of the project. It's a Weber property. And then the second one is the Wright Family Trust, which is this parcel in here. They have rezoned. Part of rezoning is that they are acknowledging assessment coming. So really, there is no problem with this one. Really, the only new assessment that we're going to have any concerns with is the Weber property right here. And that property will be able to apply for an ag deferral, or not an ag deferral, acreage reduction agreement, which would basically drop their assessment in half. So this project really doesn't have basically just this one concern of the new assessment being put to a property owner. Now for sidewalks, we have a total of 51 properties being assessed. 45 of those had been paid at final plat. 4 of them have the same petition waiver I was talking about. And 2 of the properties are new assessments, and those are the same 2 we just talked about. So really not too much to be concerned about there. As far as our assessment goes, what do we assess for? Sidewalk and street. And so for street, we assess for a total width of 31 feet. So that's 15.5 feet of pavement go to the north, 15.5 goes to the south. And we do not charge for any other storm sewer, moisture and density under the pavement, anything else besides those 2 items. Preliminary assessment cost is, we estimated at $60 per square yard for paving. And this occurred in the Douglas Avenue project, where we got into a lawsuit, and the concern was with using the $60 when it's an 8.5 inch reinforced pavement that we use on arterials only, not residential street. We went to a method of reducing the cost that's being assessed down to make it equivalent to a residential street. A residential street's 7 inch pavement. So what we've done here is taken 7 divided by 8.25 times the 60 gets us to the number we used in the assessment of $50.91 for the assessable cost, which is equivalent to residential street cost. For sidewalks, we assess for 2.5 feet of the 10-foot trail, or 2.5 feet of the sidewalk. In other words, 2.5 feet of the cost goes to the north, 2.5 feet of the sidewalk goes to the city. And our estimated cost on that sidewalk was $4 per square foot. There were no deficiencies on paving or sidewalk for this project, which means that the property values carried the 20% limit, 25% limit that's allowed by code. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on the project.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any questions from the council for Dave?
Yeah, this is Councilman Obrecht. I think you covered it, but just wanted to state it bluntly, I guess, of the delaying it a year and going complete streets didn't really change the dollar amount of the assessments for anybody. Is that correct?
It did not. Well, yeah, whatever difference you would get in a year might be up, might be down. I can't tell you that for sure, but everything else should have stayed. The same things were being assessed to the same people, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the complete streets piece go, it's all city cost to make it a complete street versus anything else.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, the cost probably went down to the city because we were paying for 4.5 feet plus a 2-foot buffer, so we had 6.5 feet of 8.25 inch paving that we were paying for on each side of the street, where now we're paying for 1 10-foot trail at 6 inches of thickness. So the cost in doing it with separate bike lanes versus on street is much cheaper.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we probably saved ourselves some money.
All right. Any further questions? If not, we have 5 items for approval.
I have a motion by Blake, second by Russell to approve the first reading of ordinance 2020-25.
Discussion, please vote.
And Nicole, now I got cut. You get to move me over to a yay.
So updated.
That passes.
I have a motion by Blake, second by Russell to approve resolution 247, 2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
The motion by Russell, second by Obrecht to approve resolution 248-2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
The motion by Russell, second by Carberry Montgomery to approve resolution 249-2020.
Discussion, please vote. That passes.
I have a motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge to approve resolution 250-2020.
Okay. Discussion, please vote. And that passes. All right, thank you. And then item 8.2 is to establish a public hearing for the 2021 to 2026 CIP. And I'll turn it over to AJ for introduction. AJ.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This action would establish a public hearing for January 12th for your annual capital improvements program budget. Recently, the city CIP committee, headed by council members Obrecht and Carberry Montgomery, met, discussed, reviewed, and adopted the CIP document for 2021 through 2026, representing a variety of capital improvement projects through departmental activities to be undertaken by the city. As the council understands, the first 5 years are probably the most identifiable of the projects to be done, and the second 5 years, or what we term the out years, are the projects that are identified by staff and by council or the community that they wish to address at some point after those first 5 year time period. This public hearing would allow the council to receive public comment from the residents prior to any action to approve the document. As I mentioned, this document has been reviewed and approved and subject to a public hearing by the CIP committee, and it is forwarded for your consideration for the establishment of the public hearing at the said date. I'd be happy to answer any questions or would be happy to defer to either the co-chairmen from the council, any comments or questions from them as well.
AJ,
AJ.
Yeah, AJ, this is Dave Russell. We had an earlier conversation today. First of all, thanks to the staff and the committee by getting this information to us in a much quicker time frame than we did when I was first on the council. So we really have an opportunity to go through it and review it. The question that I have raised and that we discussed this afternoon is really the next step would be public hearing on the 12th. What I was proposing and what I've advocated for a couple of years is that we have an opportunity as a council to, before the public hearing, now that we have all reviewed and digested the document and reviewed all the projects, that if there's a project or a question or some clarification, or maybe even some objection or suggestion, that we have an opportunity to kind of work that out among ourselves, so to speak, before it goes to public hearing. I'm not sure the format on how that could look, but as you know, that if we go ahead and establish the public hearing tonight for January 12th, then the next step is January 12th and we pass it. Whereas there may be some questions on some of the items. Now, certainly since Adam and Bridget were on the committee, you know, they're very thorough and they understand the document, and if there was any questions, that could have got resolved at that point. But again, for the rest of us on the council, if we have some questions or seek clarification, or like I said, seek to ask for an amendment or even objection to one of the items, I would just like to have a forum for us to do that before the public hearing. I'm not sure how that's going to be done, but AJ, you had a couple of ideas earlier when we spoke.
Well, Mr. Russell and members of council, as a result of our conversation, we had some staff discussion. And number one, the January 12th date, we established in advance of, in conjunction with our budget hearings and our ability to establish that rate, that debt service rate, which accompanies the adoption of the CIP document. So we feel comfortable that the 12th should still remain. Now, in advance of that, it doesn't preclude the council from holding some type of work session. Now, again, our calendar is set for a variety of different ways. Number one, it's we kind of back into our calendar as far as when the budget needs to be established, when the budget and more importantly, the levy needs to be established by the council that supports your annual budget and your CIP budget. And then knowing those dates, we back up and we actually look at the actual construction of the CIP document, how we put it together as a staff. And as we've explained a number of times, is that given the limitations that we have with staff and really quite the thoroughness of the document and the preparation that goes into it, that, you know, accelerating some of the things that we used to do, say, 7-8 years ago, I would agree with Councilmember Russell that there's been significant strides in providing council with more opportunities to review. Saying that, again, I would recommend that we stay with the 12th for a public hearing, but if you're so inclined as a council that you feel you wish to meet in a informal work session to review the document, no matter how long or short that might take, those opportunities do still apply. All we need is a 24-hour notice, finding a date that is agreeable to all of you, if that is in fact what you wish to do. The other option is that you do have that option to discuss before you receive public comment on the 12th. You have that option to discuss those items that you wish to support as individual council members or wish to add, delete, etc. at that time, and then you subject that to a public hearing based on the action that you may take. So there's a couple different ways, depending upon the desire of the council, to address this document and to have a comfort level that once you take action to approve it, as you know, that is now our blueprint for moving forward on projects. Some of them have already been started, so to speak, in the design phase that were approved last year, or that were in the queue, if you will, to be addressed next. And so in order to do that from a construction standpoint, we begin a process of design, preliminary design and activity leading up to full design, public hearings, etc. So you do have an option, actually two of them as I see them, is to have a more extended meeting on the 12th to allow yourself that discussion prior to the public hearing, or that you have some type of work session in advance of that, again, if that is so the desire of council.
AJ, can't we maybe put something on the agenda for the 29th? I don't know what the other agenda on the otherwise looking on the 29th, but
the 29th is an option, Mr. Mayor. That is correct.
So why don't we just put it as an agenda, a discussion item on the 29th agenda?
That'd be fine. And again, as I said this morning, AJ, maybe there's no question about it. But it just seems to me that it'd be nice to have a process or an opportunity as we as a council to look at it and make recommendations before it goes to the public hearing. But again, we've been doing this for years. Maybe we're okay with the way it is and we go right to public hearing and vote on it at that point. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but
I completely agree with you. If you want to write that down.
Thank you.
No, I mean, as someone who's served on the CIP committee, and now on the council and served as the council representatives, I mean, I think this is one of the most important things that we do. And I know last year, I felt completely blindsided by the fact that we hadn't talked about it. I mean, as I came in January 1st, I hadn't been a part of any real conversation about it. I know I felt kind of blindsided last year. This year, I feel less blindsided, obviously, because I've been a party to the process to date. But I still think that there are things that, especially the recommendation, the specific like comments that came from the committee related to some solar and vegetation in the medians, a few other like big picture items. I think it'd be nice to discuss how we can incorporate those or how we want to prioritize those. But I think that that is a really good idea to give us a little bit of an opportunity to discuss it as a group before we go into the public hearing. And I, like you, don't know what that really looks like. Don't know that I'm super excited to do it on the 29th, but be open.
Well,
to
the alternative is we could do, I know Bridget, you have a DART meeting on the 5th, so we couldn't do it at noon. Maybe a special evening meeting on the 5th of January, the week ahead.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what, maybe we could talk about at the end of the meeting, what after we've discussed the appointment process and.
What's that? Discuss she's frozen.
I think what she was saying is maybe we can address it tonight after we do the process on the last item on the agenda. Maybe take a few minutes to wrap up before we adjourn. I think that's what I think she was saying.
Yeah, I would agree, Mr. Russell. I think it was to find that time that would work for people after you finished your last item on the agenda for tonight.
I guess maybe I'll interject here a little bit of not wanting to rehash the whole document again after 2 long meetings on it. Maybe an agenda item on the 29th that gives us the ability to identify projects, and based off the number of projects identified, then we can look to the 5th or the 12th to hear about those projects. But that at least allows council to identify what projects they want to hear more information about.
I guess I'm leaning toward just putting it on the agenda for the 29th. We'll see where the discussion leads, and if we need more time after that, then we always have time to build in before the 12th. So.
Okay.
And the other thing is we all have to remember that in the past, many times we've amended it the night of the public hearing before.
Yeah.
That's correct.
The purpose of the public hearing is to get input, and hopefully we're open enough that we can make decisions.
Absolutely. All right. Then with that, though, I'll ask for a motion and a second to establish January 12 as the public hearing date for the CIP.
The motion by Obrecht and second by Pogge.
Any discussion? Please vote.
And one other quick thing on this is in the minutes, the committee did highlight 4 items that they wanted council to look at in the future. So I'm sure we'll talk about the public hearing, but it's something that I hadn't seen done before. So wanted to bring that out as a highlight.
Yeah, that was part of mine. There was a lot more footnotes, if you will, from the committee notes and meetings this year than we've seen in the past.
And Councilmember Carberry Montgomery, was your device able to reconnect, or would you like to voice vote?
I don't know what's going down here at my house, but nothing's coming up on my iPad. So yes, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 9.1 is the MetroNet site plan at 10507 Buena Vista Court. Steve.
Okay, thank you. This might be a good agenda item for Bridget's issues. Maybe this will this will end up helping. This is a site plan for the MetroNet infrastructure project. See if I can share a site plan with you here real quick. You might recall back in September, there was a PUD amendment in this area to allow them to split off a parcel here at the back of this lot, and then also to be able to have some accessory structures be the principal use on that parcel. So this is Buena Vista here at the bottom of the sheet. 104th is right out here off the sheet to the right. This is the existing Tomatich Engineering building, and so what they've done is they plat a survey to split off a little parcel back here at the back for them to own. And what's involved is there's an access easement that comes up the existing driveway, a new concrete drive that would be able to get the MetroNet technicians to the boundary of where the buildings are going to be constructed. And then if I zoom in a little bit here, this is the area that they would own. There'd be a gate in the fence. The whole area here will be surrounded by a 6-foot high solid vinyl fence, which will provide some screening and limit access. The public would not be allowed back in here. And what they will do is build these first two buildings, each of them being about 322 square feet, and then they'll pour the slab for a future shelter that they'll need down the road. But this is where the technicians would come as needed to be able to conduct the operations that MetroNet needs to be able to provide the service for the residents of Urbandale. There's also a generator that's involved here. No one would staff these buildings full time, and again, would not be open to the public. The techs would come there as needed and do what they need to do. So pretty straightforward. Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval. Subject to the items noted, be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I guess I got a question, maybe not so much on this specific site, but on the idea of them doing the construction of the cabling and so forth to it. They're coming down 100th Street and they're basically going over what was just seeded. Who's kind of responsible for making sure it gets back into normal conditions post, since we've got new construction on new construction?
Dave, I assume that's part of the permit process we're going to be going through with them to make sure that all of that is restored appropriately?
Yes. That'll be the case.
Thank you.
All right, any further discussion or questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion in a second.
So a motion by Obrecht. Second by Pogge.
My vote is yes, Nicole.
I see that aye there. And have that recorded for you.
That passes. Thank you. Regular agenda items on item 10. First is item 10.1, the grant application for the COPS hiring program, and introduce this as our police chief, Rob Johansson. Chief.
So, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Little unusual. We got denied the grant back in August. We had noticed by email that we did not receive the COPS grant, and out of the blue, a couple weeks ago, we got another email that said we were awarded the COPS grant. We did some checking on the back end, and they told us they had no idea why we were received a notice that we didn't get it. So anyway, long story short, they have $166,667 for us to use over a 3-year period for salary and benefits for a new officer position. The only requirement would be that we maintain that officer position for 12 months after that 3-year period. So this would fit right into our future plans for expanding the force. And so I think it's an excellent opportunity. So other than that, I will take any questions.
All right, thanks, Chief. Any questions for Rob?
Chief Dave Russell here. I read the Civil Service Commission minutes, and also one of the items tonight was to decertify the list because you couldn't find 5 qualified candidates. And I think somewhere I read that you're down about 7 officers. If we take on this COPS grant, could that be used then for one of the 7 vacancies? And do you believe that we can get the vacancies filled?
Yeah, so eventually we will have a total of, if you counted from today and what we are projecting in the future, because there's with a couple of retirements and a resignation, we're going to be down 9 total positions in the near future. 2 of them are going to be employed here shortly. We've just went through that hiring process. We ended up with 2 candidates that passed everything, backgrounds, everything. They will start January 4th. So that will leave 7 additional. The 5 that were on the certified list, we're hiring 2. 2 left for other employment opportunities before we could even get their background started. 1 went to Des Moines, 1 went to Waukee, and one of them we had a conditional offer with, and he just didn't pass the background stuff. So we basically exhausted that list of 5. And so this week we are re-advertising and moving forward with our next process in hopes of finding a couple more. Realistically, as we move forward, I would say what I keep telling the guys that are working on our hiring process is let's try to get 1 or 2 good candidates every time we run a process. And I'm hopeful by the end of the year, we'll be back to full staff. That's our hope anyway, but it's getting thin out there. Rumor mill was Ames held a process last week, and they had 11 people show up, and that is dramatically down from what Ames normally sees. So it could get a little tough, but we'll just keep working towards filling those spots and just keep moving forward with it. But that being said, the next position we hire outside of these 2 that we're just starting, the next one we hire, we could designate as this COPS hire if needed. And that total 9 plus minus the 2 for 7, that includes the COPS position.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
Chief, I just have one quick follow-up. From solicitation to somebody saying, hey, I want this job, and you offer, to actually getting them on the street and being what is the timeline usually? It's just like a rough estimate. That doesn't need to be like specific.
Right.
It's just
non-certified. It's right at, if you figured from the time of actual when the posting went out and when they applied, it would be really close to 11 months, 12 months if they were not Academy certified. Academy certified with that, from that application point to getting them on the street by themselves, is probably about half that, about 6 months. If they're certified, we can usually get them once we give them the hire date. Like these 2 that are starting in January, they should be out on their own probably around May or June after they get through our FTO process.
all right. Thank you.
So the 2 that you're hiring, Chief, those they've already Academy?
Yes, one of them is ILEA, Iowa Law Enforcement Academy certified, and the other one is a Minnesota kid. He's originally from Polk City, but he's certified in Minnesota, and so he will have to do a little bit of testing to certify with Iowa, but he won't have to go through a full academy.
That's good that we work with other certifications to help get people in sooner.
Yeah, and it saves us quite a bit of money to hire someone, send them to the academy, and pay their salary. While the academies cost us anywhere from $12,000 to $13,000. Academy costs about $8,700 right now, so big savings for us to get a certified person as well. So it's going to work out good for these first two.
Do you have any new strategies or new techniques that you're planning to use or to get applicants, or is that proprietary information?
No, we are trying a few new things. Sergeant Underwood, Chad Underwood's, this was his first process that he went through, and he came up with some new ideas. And one of the biggest ones is he's working with Derek over there with our communications, and they are putting together a recruitment video and getting that all together. I know they are in the initial stages. They have a draft copy of it put together, and they're still fine tuning it, but we will soon have a new refreshed recruitment video to push out as well.
And how does our starting salary compare with, let's say, Clive or West Des Moines or Des Moines?
Well, I can tell you we're behind Des Moines substantially. The other agencies we're right there with all the rest of them. We are starting to see some agencies offering hiring bonuses for certified. Ankeny and Johnston in particular offering up to $5,000 if you have a certification. It's not a bad idea and something we may have to consider depending on where this all goes, because like I said, it does save us anywhere from $12,000 to $13,000 when they come in with a certification.
Yeah, I would think that would be a good idea. If he's already certified and he were to get a signing bonus and some sort of an agreement for it to be at least 24 months or 36 months of employment,
right,
instead of the academy and spending $8,000.
Right. And currently what we're allowed to do by contract, by the union contract, is allowed to start someone that comes in with experience. Instead of starting them at step 1 in the union pay scale, we're allowed to start them at step 2 or up to step 3 based on experience in that. So when we bring in certified in, I am doing that, bumping them up either to 2 or 3 based on how many years they have and that kind of thing. So that does put some money in their pocket. I wouldn't call it a cash bonus, but over that year's time, it definitely is a several $1,000s difference in pay.
Good.
All right. With that, then I'll ask for a motion in a second.
The motion by Blake, second by Russell.
Discussion, please vote. All right, thank you. That item passes. Thanks, Chief. Moving on to item 10.2 is to consider the purchase of Microsoft Office 365 and cloud-based email. And to introduce this is our IT Director, James Breyer. James?
Oh, am I coming through okay? Or am I?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I want to make sure I wasn't yelling and or muted. Yeah, so the basics of this is essentially we're taking our 2 redundant email servers and we're moving them out to Office 365's cloud. Basically, this is Microsoft's all-inclusive Office service. It provides email redundancy. It also has wrapped into it the whole the newest version of Office 365, which is more of a service now instead of an individual license that you buy for your employees. Then on top of that will be Cisco's email security, cloud to email security package with phishing protection and whatnot. So the scope of the actual work will be done by One Neck IT Solutions, our network partner that we've used for years. They will handle the migration and will also take care of the billing that will be monthly for the Office 365 cloud service, as well as the Cisco email security, but that is actually billed every 3 years. So the portion of that is on a 3-year contract. As I stated before, this will essentially take the 2 redundant email servers we've got, move it up into the Azure cloud, and turn it into almost like an always-on cloud propagated service. So it will provide vastly better redundancy than we have now. All you need is an email connection to get to, all you need is a internet connection to get to your email, as opposed to it depending on the city's infrastructure. So yeah, so the whole scope of it is to make sure all employees have email, all city employees have email. And then the second component of it is to provide this enhanced redundancy.
So James, unlike Homeland Security's problem the other day, you don't see our emails getting hacked by some foreign government.
Oh, are you asking if we've seen something like that with us?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the question.
I mean, you think if they can hack into the email of Homeland Security, then what chance do we have to keep people out?
Absolutely. Like, basically the rule of thumb is, given enough motivation, enough time, and enough money, there's always someone probing. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why we have, one of the reasons why I wanted this Cisco email security is that is the cloud-based version of the security that we use on site.
Good.
We've had tremendous luck with that, knock on wood. But yes, like, absolutely, the common sense way to look at it is, if an actor decides to target you and they're going to essentially put enough effort, time, and money into it, then eventually they'll find a way in. So the best you can do is essentially try to deter that with essential common safeguards, the proper applications, the proper appliances, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't had a security breach of any magnitude since I've been with the city, but that's not to say that it's never going to happen. You have to be very pragmatic and realistic about it.
But this will make us even more secure than we are.
I would say that this is in parallel to as secure as we are now. That's one of the reasons why the Cisco email security is very similar to the appliances that we have on site. So we've had good luck with them so far. So when we take that step out into the cloud, we also want to make sure that, we essentially have a product that we somewhat know.
Good. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Any questions aside from that?
Yeah, James, is there something about this as far as bigger email boxes or faster speed or something you're excited about for the employees to be able to have better access, better service?
Yes, sir. Actually, the 3 components that I really like. One is essentially, for all intents and purposes, almost unlimited storage compared to what we have now per user. So that's going to reduce our dependency on archiving, which makes actual e-compliance and e-discovery during a FOIA or during a subpoena challenging. Essentially you've got emails spread all over that you have to query, as opposed to all of it being centralized. The third thing that it will include is basically cloud storage for file sharing outside the organization for anyone that has this account. So instead of relying on things like Dropboxes or employees having to, put stuff on a thumb drive and send it somewhere, they'll be able to actually present files outside the organization. And that's been a requested feature from a lot of our departments because, with email, email isn't really made to share gigantic files. So there's all these departments with all these Dropbox accounts, ad hoc all over the place. So this will centralize that, make it a lot easier to administer too, from a security standpoint. So yes, sir, definitely the storage, definitely the ease of outside organization file sharing. I would say those are the key points for me. The final minor point is unifying everyone on the same version of Office. In years past, you would purchase new versions of Office every time they would come out. Now, along with the rest of the industry, they've kind of moved to the subscription service where it's like the quote last version of Office you'll ever buy. They just keep updating it and updating it and updating it. So instead of having, I would say for the longest time, I had two different generations of Office on city computers, and now it'll be all unified on one. So that's, yes, sir, there's a lot to like from my perspective with this.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you, James. If not, ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Pogge, second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote. That passes. You. Item 10.3 is the design services agreement for the Barrett Park natural playscape, and to introduce this is our Parks and Rec Director, Jan Herkey. Jan?
Yeah, before you tonight is a request to authorize securing design services for the Barrett Park natural playscape. If you recall through the CIP process and the past discussions, Barrett Park is located at the corner of Waterford Road and 156th Street, immediately across the street from Waterford Park. And we're very excited about this project. The two closest natural playscape areas is Jester Park and Brenton Arboretum. And essentially a natural playground will incorporate different natural elements of tree logs and stumps and boulders and plants and getting down into the creek and so forth. So what's before you tonight, again, is for the design services of that agreement. So we had an interview committee. We had sent out RFQs, received 4 firms that submitted information. We interviewed all 4. And our interview committee of 5 people had a unanimous recommendation for JBC to be the firm to design the project. What's exciting about JBC as well is they wasn't part of the requirement, but they are also going to be providing an online community input survey so we can get some community input about this project and what features they most like to see in the natural playground. So be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Jan, thank you. Any questions for Jan? All right. Hearing none, then I'll ask for a motion in a second.
A motion by Obrecht, second by Blake.
Discussion, please vote.
Councilmember Carberry Montgomery, it doesn't look like yours has quite come through yet. Thank you.
And that passes. Thank you. Then item 10.4 is to establish the employment process and the selection criteria for the temporary council member vacancy due to military service. And to introduce this is our Assistant City Manager, Curtis Brown. Curtis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. Tonight, the council letter is to help us establish an open, fair, and transparent process. And the staff really needs your direction on the next steps in this. And there are 3 key areas that I'll mention that we need your direction on tonight in approval of this council letter and any amendments you might make to it. So although I'm speaking tonight, of course, a number of us have been working on this. AJ has definitely been guiding us, and Nicole has offered a lot of good insights from her role as clerk as well. But as I mentioned, the open, fair, and transparent process is the objective here. And the council letter, as you read, lays out proposed next steps so that we can fill this vacancy due to military service that's outlined in Iowa Code. And we know that Councilmember Blake, we expect, will begin his federal active duty orders on the 21st of January. So we do need to keep the process moving. So a little background where we're at right now. There are currently 9 applicants. The application period actually closes tonight at 11:59. The next steps are these. Tomorrow, Nicole will compile all the applicant names and responses that were collected in the online form, and then send them to you. Then Nicole will schedule interview sessions with the candidates in alphabetical order as much as possible to conduct those interviews next week. And of course, those will be public, open meetings that anyone can attend. So that's important to note as well. And that brings us to the first question, and we won't deal with all these now, but the first question is, do you want to interview at least 9 candidates all on one night or split it over 2 nights? So that'll be something we need direction on. Okay, continuing the process then, the council will interview the candidates using the candidate profile that was provided in your council packets, as well as the survey questions, which would be scored, or sorry, the interview questions, which would be scored on a 1 to 10 scale. And that's the second question is, do you receive those as presented in the council letter or have any modifications to them? Then the third step is after the interviews. And this is where we certainly need a direction from you as well. After the last interview, the way that one way that we could go is that you could conclude the interviews. Nicole could compile the scores. And by the way, during the interviews, then you'll submit your scores just on a Google form, which will make it a really easy process for Nicole to get your individual scores for the questions and then quickly aggregate them all so that we can see all of the council member scores for the applicants in one spot in real time. That's, as James was talking about the cloud-based services, that's one advantage of using the Google Forms to receive those submissions. And so the question is, after the last interview, Nicole can compile those scores, include them as part of the council packet for December 29th, which will be sent out, I guess that would be Christmas. So it would be next Wednesday afternoon, the 23rd, so that you've got those in time for the 29th. And then at the meeting of the 29th, in looking at the scoring for the interview process in your discussion, then a motion can be made to forward to vote on an applicant at that time. Or do you want another process where at the end of the interviews, you can see the scores in real time there and have a discussion, and like a work session, have some kind of consensus or direction. So that could move forward to the meeting on the 29th. So those are the 3 areas to recap where we need your direction. 1, do you want to do the interviews all in one evening or split over 2 next Monday and Tuesday, the 21st and 22nd? Second, do you have any modifications to the council member profile and interview questions to be scored on a scale of 1 to 10? And then 3, your desired process for the post-interview to the council meeting on the 29th period. So with that, I will stop talking and staff will listen intently to the direction you have so that we can carry out this process as you desire. Last point, I'm sorry. Did check with City Attorney Bob Layden, and at that council meeting on the 29th, Councilmember Blake could be one of the people to vote on that appointment, since he would still, the vacancy wouldn't have happened yet. He will still be a member of the council. And with that, now I will stop. Thank you.
Curtis, this is Bridget. I'm wondering if, and I didn't hear this in anything you said, but is there an opportunity for the council after the interviews to discuss things? And does that happen in an open session? Could that happen in a closed session?
To the first part about discussing afterwards, that is one of the items that we need direction with you on. As far as whether that is in an open or closed session, City Attorney Bob Layden, I'll ask you for your direction on that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that will be in an open session, not a closed session.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob, I'm not trying to argue. I just was trying to understand the interpretation, because the way I read the code, I had two questions on that actually. Who votes? I mean, it's because it says that it would be filled by an appointment by a majority of the remaining members of the body. So I'm not trying to take Matt's vote away, but I'm just asking, does that match with what the code says?
Mr. Mayor, we've had that discussion, at least internally, and as far as I'm concerned, Matt is still a remaining member until such time as he's no longer serving on the council.
Okay.
So he's still a member.
While I respect your opinion, I am actually kind of on Mayor Bob's side, and I hate that I'm fighting to take away my vote. But I kind of agree with the interpretation that would be the remaining, as in terms of the remaining members, not myself included. But I mean, I will defer to the city attorney. But
doesn't the statute anticipate that the vacancy has already occurred, and thus the vote would be the remaining council persons? Whereas the vacancy has not occurred yet. And so I would think that Matt could participate.
The code section, Dave, that we're referring to provides in part that it occurs on the date when the person filling that office is placed on National Guard duty or federal active duty. Is my understanding that Matt is not technically placed on federal active duty, and Matt can tell us, but I want to say the 21st of January or sometime therein. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, you have it right.
So until that date, he's still on the council and then would still be entitled to participate. Bob, that's your interpretation?
Yeah, that's correct, Dave. I think sometimes the anticipation would be that this vacancy might not be filled till after it in fact occurs. But we're doing it slightly different this time. We're filling it prior to it actually occurring. The way I understand it.
Yeah, that's what I thought was the distinction.
And then, Bob, I think a question also came up is whether or not I'm a member, for this purpose of this statute, if I'm a member of the body, that I would also have a vote, or I do not vote. Whether the mayor would have a vote in this situation as well.
I do not believe you have a vote in this situation.
Okay, because that question had come up, so that's why I just was asking. So.
I'll toss in a couple comments about process. One is having done Zoom interviews recently on another deal, we found it much easier if only one person asked the questions. So maybe Mayor Bob, you'd ask the questions, not trying to pass the question, answering around or asking around to each one of us. Just made the process go a lot smoother. But then also, I'm okay doing them all in one night, but then maybe having a follow-up session to do discussion. If we're going to do a follow-up session, then splitting them over 2 nights would also work too. I just don't think we can do interviews and discussion all in the same night with 9 potential candidates, unless we gave some direction to staff as a way to whittle down the list of candidates. And I don't think we've given that direction to this point, so I think we are probably splitting it on 2 nights.
Yeah, I don't think we can't effectively split. We can't pare down the list without having a meeting to discuss it anyway. So,
well, I like the idea.
I would think we could
them all in one night, and then having a discussion the following night.
Aren't we going to limit 20 minutes per candidate? So 20 times 9, you know, that's 3 hours.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just
Well,
saying.
is 20 minutes too long for each candidate? I mean, we don't need the interview process to take longer than they're going to be on the council.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest a maximum of 15 minutes, but I think.
Because aren't we going to have answers to the questions? So, and we'll know a lot more about the candidate before we even do the interview.
Right.
So we may not need 20 minutes per.
And I like the Adams idea of having one person, and Mayor Bob would be fine, but having one person ask the questions of each one, and I think that'll actually be more efficient than trying to pass it around and having all of us step on each other and everything else.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. But I would want to reserve that after the questions were asked, you know, if there was something that a follow-up question, that could still be, you know, the council would still have the liberty to ask that follow-up question or two.
I do think that we'll probably have to do it over 2 nights unless we start at like 5:30 and maybe keep everybody to a solid 15 minutes. You might be able to get it all done in one day, but I think 2 days is probably the ideal. Front loading everybody on the first day if possible.
Yeah, split maybe 6 and 3 so that we have time for discussion on the second night.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I would be open to starting in the evening. I do even though it's a marathon, being able to sleep on the interviews before all of them and before we have a discussion. But it is a lot of time. But I'd be opening to starting at 5 or even earlier if people were able to.
And then if we're splitting into nights, I think that Google document, well, the scores would become public news. I don't think we should show the scores in it between nights so that a candidate can see that, hey, they interviewed this way and they got a high score from the council and can game the system. So.
Agreed, Councilmember. We wouldn't share that till the end. Mm-hmm.
How is this not all public record, Curtis? And I guess the question that I asked about it being, you know, whether we can do the discussion in closed session. I mean, I just feel horrible talking about people in a public session. I mean, even, you know, like you look at tonight, you know, Jan scored, you know, 4 companies against each other, but we didn't get a blow by blow of why one was better than the other. We just got their score and we approved them. But now we're going to be talking about actual people and what makes one better than the other and one worse, or, you know, a flaw of one of them.
Isn't this in a way a personnel issue? I mean,
you know, that's what I thought, Matt and Bob, Layden. I thought this was a personnel issue and we could go into closed session for that portion of the discussion.
Well, for one thing, it has to be at the request of the employee. I don't think these are treated as employees. And so that exception only is at the request of the employee. So it's contemplated that the person is already employed.
Okay.
Right, Bob?
I'm technically the employee and I'm requesting a session to close to replace me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I agree that this will get kind of catty when we have all the members that we just interviewed, like this person's really terrible, this person's awesome, sitting and listening to it. But
well, as the non-attorney, how school board had to deal with it for when they did superintendent interviews, each candidate had to request the closed session. And so if the candidate didn't request the closed session, then it was an open session item. So all 9 candidates would have to request closed session. Otherwise, somebody would be on an unequal footing.
Sure.
And if I may add, having been through this personally for job interviews, you're correct. The candidate has to apply, has to request, and the basis of it, I think it's the basis, and City Attorney Blake, please correct me, basis is of job security, that you don't reveal, if they feel that their current job is in jeopardy, that they can request a closed session for the anonymity.
All right. By the way, I just want to say sorry to everybody in advance. I'm going to take up 2 to 3, 4 hours of your life just deciding how to deal with me for 9 to 10 months. So I appreciate all this for all of you. Thank you.
We'll deal with that later, Matt.
Wrap presents, Matt, because that's what I'm normally doing about that time of the month.
I hope you're delivering your holiday baskets to all of us right after this, Matt. So
I might have to. It's maybe straight cash. Who knows? Anyway, all right.
All right. Well, I guess I think I agree with Bridget on the timing as far as I think we should do all of the interviews in one night. I think it might be a long night. I think we can start at 5 or 5:30, but I think you're better off having all the interviews in one night rather than splitting them up and then having a follow-up night for discussion. So I think you'll all appreciate sleeping on everybody's interview after you've done them rather than splitting them up.
So, if we're going to limit it to 15 minutes, I know we got a lovely list of 7 questions, but I would think that only 3 could probably get answered in a 15-minute time frame, 3 to 4. So, if Mayor Bob, if you're asking the questions, would you be able to pare down the list to maybe 3 to 4 to ask every candidate instead of the full 7?
Yep, we can do that. So are we good with starting at 5:30 on Monday?
5:30.
Is that a feasible time?
Yep.
We're doing it all virtually, so you can, eat at your computer desk when you're doing this. So
Monday the 21st. Yes, 5:30.
And Mr. Mayor, can I just clarify then, it would Monday the 21st with a follow-up session on the 22nd. You will modify the list of survey questions to 3 or 4 to be used consistently among the candidates, and the scoring scale of 1 to 10 that everybody will complete by the Google Doc. And then could you provide some direction on whether you want to just take that information without a candidate identified into the meeting on the 29th, or as a work session process, prepare give staff some direction on to prepare for a candidate that would be considered and voted on the 29th. And again, Mr. City Attorney, if there's any direction there, please advise, but that would be another part of the process we would need direction on.
Well, I think, yes, Monday night interviews, Tuesday with the discussion, I'll pare down the list. And then I guess I'm still thinking how we move forward to the 29th. Curtis, what you said?
Either after the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say at the end of the 29th or 22nd, my expectation was we would have a candidate name.
Make a decision that night.
A consensus, but we wouldn't take any action.
Right. A consensus to make sure that the person can serve. A candidate name with a backup name, and that would be on the agenda for the 29th.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify. Does that sound like a plan?
Would someone communicate the top vote getter and between the 22nd and the 29th to ensure that they would be willing to accept the nomination?
Yes.
Well, I would hope by their application we'll know they're going to accept it.
Well, you never know.
And they're going to be watching you discuss them on the 22nd. So.
Right.
We might be so hard they say, I don't want to serve with those guys.
All right, Curtis, does that answer?
I think it clarified it for me. AJ and Nicole, are you comfortable as well, since we'll be working on this together to move it forward?
I think between the three of us, we can sort this all out, yes.
Sounds good.
I've taken about a page and a half of notes, but yes, as I understand that you'll start the meeting at 5:30 on the 21st. You'll have, the candidates will be interviewed alphabetically. The mayor will ask questions of each of the candidates within a 15-minute period. He will work to pare down those to 3 or 4 pertinent questions. At the end of the night of the 21st, you'll do your Google vote. On the 22nd, you'll meet when? At 5:30 or 6?
We said 5:30.
On the 22nd, probably 6. Is that
all right?
Unless people want to meet at 5:30 again.
Yeah.
That's the only question I had on the 22nd.
Let's keep it consistent at 5:30, I guess. Then we're done
right.
earlier since it's a holiday week. We can get that done that much earlier.
We'll have 5:30 on the 22nd that you'll meet again, that you'll have your discussion about the candidates, and at the end of that meeting, you will have an offer, or you'll have a consensus that you wish to offer to candidate X, and then that name will be submitted for your 29th formal approval of that individual taking the temporary position of Councilmember Blake when he vacates that role on the 21st.
All right.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah, how's all this going to line up with our budget talks?
Well, on the 29th, you'll take action to approve this individual. We'll get through the New Year's holiday, and then staff will work with that individual to bring them up to speed as quickly as possible on being a council member for a time period of 9 to 10 months. All that's, give them dates, give them as much as we can, bring them up to speed in advance of your discussions on budget, which are tentatively scheduled for January 23rd. So whoever this person is,
will be in place. Yeah.
Okay. And
Sorry.
so that person would have to be given a copy of the budget, so that person could view it. They're basically going to be sworn in on the 21st, and on the 23rd, they're going to participate in the budget conversations. Okay.
they'll be sworn in on the 29th of December, and then they'll participate, about a month later, they'll participate in the budget sessions. They'll have gone through at least one council meeting prior to them being in the budget sessions.
I didn't think we could swear them in until Matt actually left.
Yeah, that's correct, but at least that person will know that they're a council member,
That is correct.
Okay.
I apologize.
So they can start working and getting prepared ahead of their appointment.
Absolutely, but we can't swear them into the 21st.
Correct.
I apologize. I got ahead of myself. I meant to say it was an orientation session.
Yeah. AJ just wants me gone that badly. That's what he's.
I do not. It took us a year to break you in, Matt.
That's true. That's true.
Now, if Matt's orders are canceled, do we have to let him back on, or can we have?
According to the code, as soon as his deployment or his required service, when he's released from that service, he is automatically back on council. So that doesn't take any separate. Yeah, it doesn't take any separate action from the council if Matt's responsibility ends sooner, or hopefully it doesn't go any longer. But I know Matt has specific orders that have a date to it. But if they end sooner, then yes. Let's say it's June 1st. Matt comes back. Matt's on council. No question said.
Ron, I'm glad you think of how to replace me already, so that's good. That's good.
But Matt, you did say there's orders for up to 400 days, didn't you?
I did, but that's just to cover, again, they extended so far out that just in case. But again, in theory, I could go that long. But again, I'm slated to hopefully be back in November. That's hopefully everything goes well.
Could somebody talk to me more about the Google Doc and
Yes, the thought.
when that needs to be done?
So we were just thinking, how can we collate? I mean, normally in a city interview process, we'd have a day or two, somebody could go back to their desk and key in things to an Excel spreadsheet. Given this process and, 6 people scoring and putting things in, if you enter your scores in, they'll go right to Nicole and populate an Excel spreadsheet, making the process really easy. So from one night to the next, you'll have those scores. If that doesn't work out, we'll discuss this again. If that doesn't work out, just somehow or another between the end of the last interview and when you meet on Tuesday, we need to have all of your scores into a spreadsheet. And so given that this is all virtual, it's going to be hard to collect hard copies. So long story short, you fill out a Google form for each candidate, put your score in, that goes right to Nicole. It should be a really easy process.
It sounds good. I just would rather, notes, and then at the end of the night or first thing in the morning, go back in.
Absolutely.
And not do it as I go, not knowing one candidate from the next.
Absolutely. And in fact, we were going to recommend that every council member have a hard copy backup anyway. And so, yes, I think it's just important that by the time you get to the session on Tuesday, that we have all the scores in so that you can see them at once and have it as a point of discussion. Thank you for that question, Councilmember.
So just when Bob figures out what questions he wants to ask, could you send us out a sheet that we could use that mimic be on the dot, 1 to 10 or, for each question?
Definitely. And your very diligent city clerk has already prepared that Google form.
Sure she has.
It's just a matter of editing it now. So.
All right, and she's nodding her head. I'll acknowledge that Nicole's nodding her head to that as well. So. All right. We have a process then, right? Any further discussion? I don't think we have to take an action on this tonight, do we? Do we do?
Yeah, to appoint agenda item.
All right. Do you have a motion in the system? All right. So Nicole has a motion in the system to essentially adopt what we just discussed. So I will ask for a motion in a second on that.
All right. So I have a motion by Obrecht, second by Pogge.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, that takes us to the end of our regular agenda. I'll go around the horn. We'll start with Adam tonight.
Yeah, AJ and I earlier had a discussion about our fun little YouGov app, and I know he, I think, queued up staff to talk a little bit about it for a way of citizens to submit requests. I know I've had good luck doing it, but also don't think it's because of position, since YouGov is mostly anonymous, getting things done. So I guess with the snow and derecho and all that, was there a heavy use of YouGov this year?
I will turn this over to John Larson, the Assistant City Engineer. I queued up John. Engineering fields many of these questions. So John, if you're with us, please, could you just address its usage and how we utilize it?
AJ, I think John and I talked afterwards, and I'm just going to handle it. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
well, Dave, I'm sparing you all that, but.
Okay. Yeah, the MyGov is you access it through our webpage, and you can get in there and fill out any kind of concern you have, and then from that it gets assigned to the proper person in the organization to take care of the problem, and then it's part of the cartograph system, which is our asset management system, And with that, when the complaint gets closed out, then there should be notification back to the person saying that it is closed out. So, you know, it is a good system. I can tell you that Cartograph is closing it out. And so it's part of our suite of our total package with Cartograph. They're going to close that out and offer a separate add-on system, which probably is going to be more enhanced. And we're looking at that now to see if that's our best route to go. The one thing is that Cartographs is probably going to be more integrated to the overall asset management system. So I think that's what I could offer to you tonight, that yeah, it certain people, once they get used to using it, use it a lot. And we can track what everybody, you know, if they've complained about it before or if they've had other concerns, you know, we can see if they're frequent flyers or not.
You know, like trees down, especially with derecho. Now the driving home a little bit more in the dark, street lights out, things like that, and usually see action on it. It doesn't respond back to me that the action's been closed out, but I think that's because I'm not logged in or have an account in it. So
yeah, if you don't enter all of the stuff, you end up going in this unit. You know, you don't get the answer back unless you go through the whole process.
I don't, but the stuff gets fixed. So
okay,
glad it works well. And so other than that, sounds like we're going to be getting together next week, but not non-normal process. Merry Christmas to everybody.
All right, thank you, Adam. Bridget.
I hope everyone enjoyed. Very informative. Lots going on, like I always say, every single meeting. But if you have questions after you've mulled it over, please let me know and I'll get answers to it. But there's a lot of moving pieces in that right now. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was we had lengthy discussions during the budget period last year about a lobbyist, hiring a lobbyist, joining with the large cities group. And I just wanted to check in with the mayor and AJ on that. I've had a couple things come across my desk just today that have brought up, you know, that the session is coming and what our priorities are and how we hope to achieve those. So I just wanted to check in with the mayor or whoever has information on that.
Yeah, I haven't had any further discussion on the Metro Coalition. I can follow up and see if there's any renewed interest to have Urbandale join that. Have not heard that. We, you know, at this point, you know, otherwise I wouldn't see where we'd have a pressing need to maybe have our own lobbyist, at least for this year, to press forward to do that before the session. Let me check on the Metro Coalition part of it and just see what the current thought is. Ideally, I think it would be good if we were part of that and kind of a part of the group, and that'd be a very cost-effective way to have some representation up there. So I will follow up on that, Bridget.
And I think is, do we have a legislative list of priorities? AJ, can you hear me? It doesn't look like you can.
Oh, you were breaking up down. I'm sorry.
So someone had reached out to me on the Clive legislative priority list that might impact us. And so I was just wondering if we had a list of legislative priorities.
Historically, the council has not developed its own independent list of priorities. We typically look to the League of Iowa Cities in general for priorities that are established through our membership. We also, even though we may not be a member of the coalition that the mayor has presented, we typically support those activities because we align ourselves more from a policy standpoint, we're more aligned with them, even though we haven't broken into that barrier that typically they set at 50,000 in population. And then if there are issues that come up, as they always do during a legislative session, that are brought to our attention that we know that are have a significant impact on our community. So we've not had the history of developing legislative priorities. That doesn't mean that we can't. I know this year is going to be a different year, and I think Matt can speak to that as far as his lobbyist activities. As I understand that there are going to be no lobbyists allowed on the Hill, at least at this point in time, to interact in the traditional with the legislature. But again, that's just more of a process. But procedure-wise, we do not have, we have not pre-established a list of priorities from our council.
We have, again, as AJ said, the league has some priorities, and as Dave knows from being on Metro Advisory Council, we've kind of established from a metropolitan standpoint some legislative priorities, and we can share that part of it as too. But with where we are with the session as far as not attendance there, and I don't think this is going to be. We never know. I mean, I don't anticipate heavy city issues, and if they do come up, I think we can band together, lobbyist or no, to work with other cities to express our cause. I think whatever issues do come up from a city standpoint, we're going to be in a similar boat with everybody else. Especially if something like the backfill comes up. I mean, I think that's going to be a statewide issue, and we're going to be able to work with the league and everyone else on fighting that if we need to.
Okay, thank you for the update. I'll probably talk to you, AJ, about the 5 issue that somebody talked to me about, and we can follow up on that later.
Yeah, and I will. I'll push out the league's information. I haven't seen it, but I know that they've worked on it. And then also, as an affiliation, the Des Moines Partnership has a legislative priority list. I don't know if you've seen that on your mailings, but again, that's more toward the business community. And some of that may align with council's goals and objectives or concerns, but some of it may not. But certainly, give me contact me, email me, call me. We can talk about that, and we can see how that works out.
Does Clive have their own priorities, Bridget? Is that what you're saying? Did they establish it from the council standpoint?
Apparently they do, because I had someone reach out to me. Project Hickman change.
Related to what? You were breaking up.
Environmental. Oh, I'm sorry. I have crappy internet tonight. The Hickman interchange and some environmental requirements by the DOT or non-requirements by the DOT. I don't know. Not really familiar with the lingo. Something to do with an MS4 permit. I don't know what that means.
I can answer that to a certain extent because we've had conversations concerning that. This is a joint effort by both of our cities to have an in-depth discussion with the DOT concerning the interchange project, not only the physical improvements of the I-35 Hickman interchange project, but also as it moves its way back as it relates to 128th interchange, and then other issues associated with it with stormwater management. And so that may be part of it, but that's not necessarily a legislative issue. It's more of a effort on behalf of the two communities to work in conjunction with the DOT. That's where our conversations have gone to date. I've not heard in our conversations, I've not heard any reference to going directly for a legislative remedy to any of that. Quite honestly, because we're engaged with the DOT, they would more than likely say, please work with your district engineer on addressing your concerns.
I'll follow up with you with more exciting information that I particular issue.
Very good. Thank you.
But yes, it appears the Clive may have their own legislative agenda.
Okay. All right. All right, Ron.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Matt?
And I'm working with the mayor, and AJ, you will get an email from me tomorrow about this, but Bravo has a presentation they would also like to give. They were heavily impacted. They have been heavily impacted with hotel motel tax. It is, and the mayor has seen it. You could probably, I'm not going to share too much about it, but it is somewhat bleak. So I don't want to give too much away. I will let them present it, but we're working hopefully in the next couple, before I leave, hopefully, but to get that presentation done. Other than that, I was going to say Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, all that, but I guess I have many hours with you next week. So see you all then.
All right. David?
One of the consent items that we passed tonight was the citizen survey. Talked to AJ, and he said that that was going to be addressed probably sometime in February, I think, at a lunch and learn. I don't know how much the rest of you dove into that, but there was some issues that kind of stuck out this year, and our quote marks I thought were down, but that could have been COVID, and it could have been something that's indicative nationwide too. But I think it bears that we as a council look at that and discuss it, because that really is the feedback from our shareholders, if you will, about how the corporation's being run. So look forward to that sometime in February or however you can work that in. But I would encourage everybody, that you've gone through that and looked at it pretty closely.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. I just have one item, I think, mainly tonight, is that tomorrow there'll be a regional water discussion. We're going to get back together again, and so I will have more information after that meeting, but it's sounding promising that we're getting things put together, but we'll have a further meeting on that, and then I can report back to you at our next meeting and see where we are. That's all I have, I think, for tonight. So with that, I'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you Monday night.
Thanks, everyone.